Well, thank you so much for that. That was absolutely beautiful. And I'd like to now introduce Heidi Hebditch and Mike Caslor, if I may. And Heidi, if you'd like to take it away. Thank you so much, Donna.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle. That was a great introduction. I am looking for my document that is being very difficult for me to find for some reason. I apologize.
I can share my screen if you like.
I don't know what's going on. I've never had this happen to me before. Of course, it would happen right now. I think the problem is that we have different slides, don't we? But I don't know where it's gone. It's completely.
We can certainly use the version of slides that Michelle has. That's okay,
Yeah,
I think,
we
Heidi.
might have to do that.
That's okay. Yeah, that's all
Sorry,
right.
Michelle.
That's
It's a great start,
absolutely
isn't
fine.
it?
Okay, now I'm actually just going to, here we go.
Do you have yours?
I do.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, it's so exciting to have everybody here today. This is a bigger group than Mike and I are used to having online. So it's really exciting. It's energizing to have lots of people in the room and from all over the world. So welcome. So as Michelle said, I'll just let you get set up there from your slideshow. And so I am obviously Heidi Hebditch. Try and say that too fast too many times. Lots of people have made that mistake. I come from the unceded territory of the Tanaka-Kimbasket, which is in the southeastern part of British Columbia near Kimberley, BC. Those are my favorite people in the whole wide world, my grandchildren. Who were just here for the full weekend, so I'm a little bit exhausted from that, but always lots of fun. And you know, that's really who I am. I'm a mother, a grandmother. I have four grown children, four grandchildren, and I'm a daughter and a sister and a friend and an auntie, most of all. But in addition to that, I am also a consultant, a trainer, and a consultant. I work with organizations in lots of different capacities. I'm a licensed signs of safety trainer as well. So I'll talk a little bit later about my biases around that. But yeah, I'm just happy to be part of helping organizations, you know, think through decolonizing old practice and building new practice on their own traditional ways of knowing and being. So that's been really exciting and new work for me. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. That's where I am from, right there, where that little star is, and that's the Uckham area of the Tanaka-Kimbasket Nation. And oh, Mike's slides didn't make it
Yeah,
into that deck. That's what's
fine.
missing. So Mike's going to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, for having us, and for Heidi inviting me to this call. My name is Mike Caslor, and I come from Dakota and Ojibwe land, where the rivers meet in Manitoba, southern Manitoba. And that's where I was raised, and that's where I'm raising my family. So I'm a father of three, not yet a grandfather, but a father of three. And it's lovely to be with you here today. I'm also a social worker and do similar work as Heidi with various nations here in Manitoba, Dakota and Ojibwe nations, and also connected to the signs of safety community. But today it's about practice frameworks and developing law. So it's an honor to be here with Donna Pratt, and she is actually the mother of a friend of mine and a grandmother of another friend of mine. So I know her family a little bit, but it's lovely to work with her in this way today. So we'll hear more from Donna in a bit. And Laura, are you on the call? I know you had a little bit of trouble getting on the call. I just wanted to acknowledge you and welcome you to the call. If you're here, Laura Pratt, are you on the call? You might be muted. You might have to unmute.
I can't see her. Mike?
Okay, thank you. She's still joining a storm went through her community and her internet was out, so she was trying to join in another way. So we hope to have her on soon. But I'll pass it back to Heidi. And thank you for everybody who's attended.
Thanks, Mike.
Did you want to share your screen, Mike? I can't hear you.
I think if you share yours right now, Michelle,
Okay.
mine's somehow disappeared. So
Yeah, that's great.
we
Thank
will
you.
make do with that. So, talking a little bit about practice frameworks. So I'm going to share some slides, just share some information about practice frameworks, why they're needed, difference between frameworks and models. I think there's lots of confusion out there about what a practice framework really is, and why do we need it, and what does it do for us? What is its impact? So we'll talk a little bit about that, and then Mike will take over with Donna, and hopefully Laura will join by then. A framework is what guides our work. It kind of sits behind the scenes. It's kind of in the background, but human beings are very emotional creatures. And when you get into the work of whether it's prevention or protection work, um, we're complex human beings and we work with complex human beings, and together it's not a great fit if you don't have some guiding principles, some guiding rules behind all of that, and it can actually become quite dangerous when children are at risk. We get into dangerous practice or naive practice as a result of responding emotionally to the challenges that we come up against. So how your organization practices is directly linked to outcomes for service recipients. So much so that, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit, and I'm sorry if I'm going fast because I really don't want to miss anything. And I know we have such a short period of time. Um, but how we function within our office directly impacts outcomes for children and families. That means the culture of the organization or the paradigm of the organization, the worldview, the anxiety of the organization directly impacts outcomes for children and families. And that's why we have to have healthy organizations where it's safe to learn, it's safe to make mistakes, because we're not always going to get it right. But in protection work, that's our biggest fear. Our biggest fear is making a mistake, getting it wrong. And so we really need to have frameworks in place. And without that solid foundation of good community-driven frameworks or policies or practices, ethics, mandates, case management protocol, it will inevitably contain some inconsistencies. We will be responding to crisis on a whim, on an emotional or intuitive response, rather than using our critical thinking and working into and through some of those problems. And finally, and most importantly, for some of you, if your community is wanting to enter into coordination agreement under Bill C-92, then a framework is required. So let's try and make it a little easier for people. It's not as hard as we like to think it is. Michelle, if you can just advance that slide. So some of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this work is I've worked in child protection. I started with Tanaka Kim Basket as a frontline child protection worker back in the day. I supervised there for 6 years after that. And we were really striving to have a different practice. And in 2011, I left the frontline and I just went training and consulting under the practice model of science of safety. And so through the last 25 years or so of working in practice, I've come to see the discrepancies, the inequality, the bias that exists within models and frameworks that is deeply impacting how we work with families. And so this is examples of what happens as a result of some of that inconsistency in practice and framework. And most of you may have already seen this, but this is the prayer from the Gitxsan hereditary chief, Audrey Lindquist. And it came out in, I think it was the 2022 or the 2023 RCY report, the representative children and youth. And I just want to read it because it is so poignantly representative of stories throughout Canada and beyond. So this is Audrey's prayer, and Galilee is creator. She says, Michael is AWOL again. He's fleeing from a broken system that's keeping him captive. He's running to mom somewhere on the streets. She needed help years ago, and all they did was rip her precious son from her arms. She has no family, as she grew up in the system herself. What hope is there for her and her baby boy? He's 14 now and will soon age out. He longs for her and plans to take care of her, yet he hasn't had help to deal with the trauma he's endured since being taken into care. He's on the street searching. What will he find in this dangerous world? For him and many other foster children and their families, all they will find are blunt systems like child protection, police, and the whole justice system that can't meet their needs. Sadly, the mental health and substance use workers don't have the appropriate models of therapy or the skills to effectively help these children and their families. Tragically, Michael will run into predators who will exploit and brutalize him. He's experienced this. These children and their families are kept in their place with ideologies, values, beliefs, labels, judgments, and attitudes. Galilee, what chance do they have? Is there any hope? Oops. Sorry, I just have to find my spot in this very small printing. Michael will run into predators who will exploit and brutalize him. He's experienced this. These children and their families are kept in their place with ideologies, values, beliefs, labels, judgments, and attitudes. Galilee, what chance do they have? Is there any hope? Send more ancestors to take care of them. Galilee. He's probably staying at the shelter with his friend Willie. Willie is a young 16-year-old who is labeled as oppositional defiant, and they describe him as being hard to place. Both boys are alone. They have no buffer against this cruel world. What models of care and support are there to teach and foster resilience? Both boys want their families to love and protect them, but the child protection system doesn't help to build healthy family and community systems. All they have is each other and a strong desire to be with their moms and families, but many of their siblings are also in foster homes. Michael has been found skinny and bruised, and he's home until next time. No one has seen Mom for a while. Sadly, his foster mom got the call. Mom was found dead on the street. Why would she want to live without her baby? My friend told me he crumbled into her compassionate arms and sobbed until he could sob no more, but he's gone again. Galilee, I know you are taking him home to be with Mom. They can love each other in peace, but this shouldn't be the only option for these vulnerable children and their families. Please send us compassionate and accountable leadership to build better ecosystems of care. We need to wrap around these families as we build resilience and wellness. We need a just legal system and appropriate and effective mental health systems. Every child deserves to have a sense of belonging, mastery, independence, generosity, and self-determination. We need more love and caring. Help us build our collective will and sense of humanity to protect and care for our sacred children and youth who are disappeared or missing. Forget me not. So I know this prayer is quite triggering for many who have experienced these systems and the difficulties that these systems create for families and the devastation that they leave in their path. And so we know also from the report that there were, I know it says 198 children, but I believe there was over 300 children missing from care at that time. So I'm just gonna show you some of the stats, and I know it's hard to hear and it's shocking, but it's so important that we keep an eye, or we remember what systems have done to families and to children everywhere, especially at this time in our history where there is an opportunity for First Nations, of course, to develop their own systems of care. So if you move the slide forward, we know that children in out-of-home care face greater risks for poor health and social and educational outcomes because of those adverse early life experiences, such as maltreatment and poverty. We also know that First Nation, Inuit, Métis, Black, and other communities that are vulnerable by structural inequalities are disproportionately harmed by involvement in those welfare systems. And again, I have personal story after story after story that I could share as well. This is just a few of the province's data. I just wanted to share the CIC, that's Children in Care. In 2019, you can see that in British Columbia, there were 6,263 children in care in 2019, which represents about 6.76 per thousand children in the province. And you can see also, if you take a look at Alberta, it was 2022 for them, but they had nearly 17 children per thousand in care at that time. And if you advance that slide, you'll see some of that data changes in 2022, and I've added Manitoba in there because I know we have Manitobians in the room today. But you can see that these stats show a decrease in Alberta and an increase in British Columbia, and a staggering 29.6 children per thousand in Manitoba. And it's just a snapshot really to show you that we are continuously seeing an increase of children entering care in British Columbia, even though after the RCY report came out, there was a strong call for action. And even more recently, they have called for more preventative services and also more youth services. And, on an interesting side note, really exciting outcome seeing in Ontario. I just got back from there last week, and they're now noticing, because they're using a new model of practice, and in that new model of practice, they are working really, really hard to make sure children are always connected to family, community, and culture. And so it's a very interesting thing that they're now seeing children that are entering into post-majority services because they've been in our care for a very long time, but there are no more coming up behind them because there is no need for that, because they've all maintained that connection and belonging to family. So it's really interesting stuff. And it goes to show your framework and your model matters, because that's how it impacts people and families. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So the overall trends then are that we are seeing more and more children coming into care, even though there is a greater cry for different work, more prevention work. We're still seeing more children come into care. And they're increasingly overrepresented in health, mental health, and prison services statistically over time because of those adverse early childhood experiences. And there is a significant overrepresentation of Indigenous people, people of color, and people of traditional cultures. And it's quite dramatic. In Canada, 53.8% of children in out-of-home care are Indigenous, even though they represent only 7.7% of the population. Of all court-ordered induced care admissions relating to Indigenous children, 76% are due to neglect. And it's an important fact. It might seem like a small fact, but it's an important fact that 76% of those children coming into care from Indigenous communities are related to neglect. In fact, in the Yukon, they had the opportunity to adjust their legislation, and they took neglect out of their Section 4 intervention. So it's a great time to be thinking about future legislation in communities. So in 2023, according to MCFD stats, there were 4,875 children and youth in care. 3,294 of those children are Indigenous. That is an incredibly high number. That's 34.2 Indigenous children out of every 1,000 placed in care, and just 1.9 of every 1,000 in non-Indigenous children. And if you advance to the next slide, you get a snapshot of that, which is absolutely shocking. The green represents the Indigenous children in care per 1,000 population, and the yellow at the bottom represents non-Indigenous children in care. Very, very sad stats. Next slide. So we know the current systems don't work, right? And this is the report from the representative of children and youth. The majority of youth or of young people who are lost or missing were between the ages of 14 and 18. Older children likely to be missing for longer periods of time. 65% of the young people reported as lost or missing were Indigenous. Indigenous females were found to be overrepresented among the young people reported as lost or missing, and nearly half of the children and youth who were reported as lost or missing from care were in a contracted residential resource. Of the children and youth with a sibling also in care, less than 20% were placed with siblings. That means we're recreating patterns of the past, breaking families apart. When children need belonging more than anything else. Healing happens in family, in networks, believe it or not, not in therapy. And that's a Kevin Campbell quote. Another famous quote that I love quoting from Kevin Campbell is that we will spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on children in care. And the minute they age out, they become homeless. So, go ahead to the next slide. So we know something has to change. The representation of Indigenous children in foster care increased even more from 47.8% of all foster children in 2011 to 51.7% in 16 and 53.7% in 21. So it's continuing to climb. The total proportion of Indigenous children in care was nearly 6 points higher in 21 than 2011. And BC Coroner's report that young people leaving government care died at 5 times the rate of the general population of young people in British Columbia. A very sad stat. So, interrupting that cycle of colonization, and this is an interesting thing. I'm so keeping an eye on the time because I don't have enough to get through everything. But I have some exciting news, so don't worry. Interrupting the cycle of colonization, what I've seen interestingly is some communities that are entering into negotiation and coordination under Bill C-982 are adopting frameworks and policies that almost reflect the provincial policies. And so I know that it's so deeply embedded, so ingrained that we don't know how to step out of it. We don't know how to step away from that and create what is ours, uniquely, independently, yours from your community. And so that's what we want to talk about today. We want the processes of that are built on your values and your traditions to live in the everyday actions of workers. And so that's a journey, and to decolonize and move toward the creation of something so uniquely yours that can actually live in the day-to-day interactions. How do you bring respect? How do you bring compassion? How do you bring whatever it is that your ancestors valued as caring for children? Whether it is that the matriarchs step in, or the respect, or that children are sacred, that children are precious, that children need to be heard. If that is a value, how do you make that live? when you're interacting with a mom and a dad, a mom who's broken or a dad who's violent and abusive or addicted to substances. So how do you bring those values to life? So that's what we want to talk about if you just advance the slide. And this is a beautiful slide that our colleague, Bart Knutsgaard, created and gave me permission to share. I didn't see the point in recreating it. So your beliefs and values are what nourish everything else. They are the things that feed into all your procedures, your frameworks, your standards, your directives, your practices, your policies. And the mission and the vision is what gives strength to that. It's what holds all of that up. Um, and Another nice visual for that, if you advance the slide, and again, this is Bart's good slide. It's like so the framework is the foundation, and if your framework isn't established well, if it's cracked, then everything you build on it is going to crumble. So you want to build that firm and solid foundation, and that is your practice framework. It is what houses your values, your beliefs, the beliefs of your ancestors. And, this is what I would be asking the community, thinking back to when you were young, when you were with, your grandmother, your grandfather, your great grandmother, as far back as you can think, what would they say was important in keeping kids safe and well in the community? What would they have done if there was a family struggling with some problems? How would they have responded? What would they want you to be doing to care for the children today? Think about the children of the future. What would they say they need from you? And so this is where you begin to to return to your traditional thinking around how we keep kids safe, and the things that are important, the things that you value. And then you can build the frame and the structure of the house, which is the model that goes on top of the framework, and the policies and the guidance, your laws that are based in those values and traditions. So we know that building a meaningful foundation constructed on those traditional values is crucial to safe, healthy community. Any First Nation community I've stepped foot in is not just after a framework. They're not just after a model. They want healing for the community. And so all of that works together for the best possible outcomes for your children. Go ahead, Michelle, 10 minutes. Okay, so these are some because I think people get a bit confused about frameworks and what that means and what that looks like. And so here's some examples. I don't have full examples. You can go online though. These are all online. You can look them up. Before we get to that, the problems with practice, one of my favorite quotes, the 1991 National Commission on Children concluded that if the nation had deliberately designed a system that would frustrate the professionals who staff it, anger the public who finance it, and abandon the children who depend on it, it could not have done a better job than the present child welfare system. So we know that to be true. And that is not to say that there isn't workers that care, that workers are there doing their best and working within a system, trying to help, and they're confronted with these systems. So the system gets in the way almost every single time. Honestly, every time I have sat on a child death review board, every single time it was the fault of the system, not the worker. So we have to be thinking about how we're building systems. And even Audrey Lindquist in her prayer talks about those blunt systems. How do we create systems of care that actually care? This is great time in history again. So you can go forward, Michelle. So the practice framework will actually integrate the empirical research, practice theories, ethical principles. I know that seems all, academia, but we have to know what approach we want to use when we are working with families. We've got to create some form of standard of care. And so, there's all kinds of practice theories out there. There's, of course, solution focused. There's strength based. There's trying to think off the top of my head. All kinds. There's Indigenous um, care, I think it's called. There are trauma-informed practices, all kinds of, and of course, we also need to understand social work theories in terms of developmental ages and stages. Children that are really young are more at risk than children that are a little bit older. And we also need to understand what to be looking for. If children are at risk, what would be the signs? And so there are some of those things that need to be written into our frameworks. But they would also include, of course, those values and beliefs, those traditional values and beliefs. So you can go ahead there, Michelle. And you can just kind of advance through these. This is famous, right? For all those out there in BC, you've most certainly seen this Aboriginal Policy and Practice Framework. It's a beautiful little booklet. And this is the visual. So once you create your framework, you create a visual that you would share with the world, with your community members, with your community partners. And it really describes how you intend to work within your community. And so these are the visual representations. This is from my area of the province, East Kootenay Primary Care Network Model of Care. So just another visual representation. And this comes from the Tanaka Social Sector Practice Framework. It's a beautiful framework online, available as well. Talks about how we are to show up in the work. You've got everything all there in the wheel. Indigenous child and youth mental health. So you can see that all services typically have their own framework of practice. And you can just flip through the rest, Michelle. Okay, so very quickly, the difference that a framework makes. I just want you to have an understanding of the impacts of frameworks. So a quick comparison. So if you just advance forward, a tale of two models. So a strength-focused model will focus on an increase of wellness and safety. Once you have your framework, you've got to adopt a model of practice. The framework is who you are, how you intend to show up. The model is the practical tools that workers will use to show up in that way. So a strength-focused model will focus on increase of wellness and safety. And an example of that is signs of safety, which is a balanced assessment for that focuses on things that create safety. So strength focused is looking to increase wellness and safety. A risk focused model will focus on a reduction of harm with an emphasis on identification of risk. And an example of that is your structured decision making. And that is the model typically, and I'm using these two as a comparison because these are the two mostly used in Canada today. But the structured decision-making model is the model that the ministry has used for a number of years, and it is used vastly throughout Canada. So there's a real emphasis on identification of risk. Go ahead, Michelle, and I'm just going to show how this turns out in practice. So let's consider the value of being strength-based or inclusive. So this is what an assessment tool would look like under the signs of safety. So what we're after in assessment is to make a decision about, is this really our business? You know, we receive a report and we have to make a determination about whether or not we need to be involved. If we're child protection, we want to be involved as little as possible because we have serious impacts on the lives of children and families. So we've got to try to use our critical thinking to analyze whether or not there is so much risk that we need to be involved, or is there enough safety and strengths that are existing? And this is the balance of the framework, what we're worried about, what's working well, what needs to happen. If we had more time, I would have taken you through an exercise. But Michelle, if you can go to the next slide and keep clicking through the questions, but this is how it works. Typically starting in the working well column, because that's very unusual for protection workers to start in the working well column, we would start to ask questions. And you can keep going, Michelle. There's lots of questions in here. And then we just go back and forth and really get a sense of what the problem is, what the worries are about the problem, but also what strengths did the family have? What are the things that the family does really well? What are the times when these problems occurred in the past, but the family was able to get through them? We really want some meat in that middle column. And then in our third column, we're really moving towards solutions by then. So having thought about all of this, what would it take for us to move up on the scale, to move our number closer to a 10? What would we see happening in the family to be confident that the problem had been sorted out? So that's solution focused. And if you move to the next, this is an example of a structured decision-making assessment tool, and it is a strengths and weaknesses assessment that is filled out at intake and again at closure. And you can see some of the questions there that they're asking in the structured decision-making is, you know, about housing stability. Do they pay their mortgage on time? They haven't moved in the last 6 months, and you can see the scoring goes from a -2 to a +2, and then you would add that up in the end. Question 2, you know, safety in the community. Are they living in a safe neighborhood for the children where there's no problem playing outside? Or do the neighbors look out for each other? Is there good space and privacy for the children? Is there adequate furnishings in the home? Do the families maintain a stable budget? Do they prepare balanced, nutritious meals? Oh, there's my timer going, telling me I'm out of time. So you can see that this is a structured decision-making tool, and this is taken right off Saskatchewan's site. And you can see the bias in there. So what was happening when and this is infiltrated the IT systems. So IT systems, very, very important. Don't ever rush into buying an IT system. Make sure you get one that is going to reflect your practice. Because when this kind of thing starts to infiltrate your IT system, the IT system is your boss. And if it's telling workers that you have to ask these questions and workers are answering arbitrarily or, you know, based on their intuition or what they're seeing in the home or how they were raised or what their values are, you're going to have problems. And we experienced that at Tanaka because when the new IT system, ICM, came out, it had SDM had infiltrated it. And if they were working with a child on reserve, almost every single time they did the assessment, it would come out and pump out a response that said, remove. Child has to be apprehended because of the score. So they had to override the system every time so as not to be apprehending all these children. So these biases have been present in our systems in the past, and they impact and affect how workers show up at work because there is an expectation that they do these things, that they fill out these forms, that they check these boxes, and they're left in such a way that there is no control over the outcomes in some cases, because then we're dealing with environment of our office, right? The culture or the paradigm that we work within, and that's a whole other story. So all of these things and more, Mike and I are going to be talking about, because I know I'm a little bit cutting us short and we didn't get to do these exercises. But if you want to join in going through some of these exercises and working through and thinking through how you might develop your own model a little bit further, Mike and I have a workshop happening June 4th and 5th. And we have lots of seats available. It's called Nation Driven Practice. And Michelle sent out that email some time ago. But thank you. It's been great. I'm sorry I went 2 minutes over my time, but I've enjoyed sharing with you. So I think we're going to take a break. Is that right, Michelle?
Yes, we are, and we'll reconvene in about 8 minutes. Thank you so much,
Perfect.
everybody. We'll see you back then. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi, for starting us off. Hey, Donna. I just want to check in with you. We're just on a very short break here, and then we'll be back together for you to share the work. Is that still going to be good for you?
Yeah, actually, I just walked in here.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we'll just
Is,
start again in just a couple of minutes, and then
sure. Is Lori on now?
I don't think she's been able to join actually.
Oh my goodness sake.
I was on the phone with her a couple of times just as the call started, just supporting her. I'm
I
not sure
think
that it's
she
going to
may
work out.
be. I think she may be on the call.
Ah, perfect.
Oh, wait a
Laura, are
moment.
you here?
She may have dropped out again. She
Wow.
was on a little while ago. I'm sorry about that.
This is very suspenseful, actually. It's exciting to know if she'll
Yes.
make it on or not. Um, we will go on for another hour and 10 minutes, I think, Jocelyn, and then we'll be done. I just saw a text in the chat group. Donna, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Lovely. I just wanted to double check. Great.
I can't see you all of a sudden.
Actually, I can't see you, actually. Can others see Donna? Or is it blacked out for others as well?
A blackout for me all of a sudden. Oh, well,
Ah!
as
Hang on
long as
here.
you can hear me.
Let's see if I stop sharing my screen. No, it'll be the same. Okay.
Mike, I can see a wall for Donna
Behind Donna.
behind Donna.
Ah, okay. Still?
Yep.
Okay.
I wonder if Donna, if you just move your camera down.
Ah,
Uh-oh. I wonder if she's having some technical difficulties.
possible could be.
My class, let's see why I'm doing this. How come that's,
Uh,
how come they don't see
can,
my
how's
face?
the audio? Can you hear me okay, Donna?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. It's just saying joining meeting.
You definitely are with us.
Can't see me. Oh, they don't
Aren't
have
they
to.
on there?
Yeah, they don't have to see me.
Yeah, we're here.
100 of us are here.
100 of us are here, about to begin. Yes, it's true, actually.
Yeah, you were on here, and then all of a sudden it's just saying joining meeting, and that's it.
Maybe we should, yeah.
Log in. Can you log out, Donna, and then log back in? That usually fixes it.
Well, seems to be a problem here in Manitoba. Are you having that problem, Mike?
I'm not currently in Manitoba right now, actually, but
Oh, that's why.
yeah, I might have dodged the storm. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the storm. Yeah.
So we could either proceed as we are now and hear your voice and
Yeah, you
receive your
can hear
wisdom in
my
that way,
voice.
or we could maybe you could log out again and come back in. As Michelle suggested, I think either is an okay way. What would you prefer, Donna?
I'll just speak. I don't have to
Yeah,
be. Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay, so Lori is not on at the moment, huh?
We can
I
just double
can't
check.
see her.
Yeah, I spent the half hour leading up to the call supporting her to come on, Donna, just so you know, and it didn't seem to work out because of the internet and the storm up at Sioux
Yeah.
Valley. So I just did the best we could.
Yeah, that was quite the storm. That's fine. I'll just
Yeah.
go ahead and
All right, you gotta do your part and your sister's part, Donna. We'll see how this
yeah,
goes.
I'll do
Yeah.
both parts. Yeah.
All right.
That's okay. Yeah.
Is it okay if we begin, Michelle? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge Heidi, and I want to thank you for starting off our workshop. And I know you've had years and years of experience working with the provincial system in frustrating ways, and then also sort of recently years and years of trying to make it better for workers, families, and communities. So just to acknowledge those years of experience, and thanks for inviting me on this call again, and thanks for starting us off. And also to acknowledge Donna.
Mhm.
And your role within your community as a grandmother and a great grandmother and a Dakota speaker, and one of maybe a few Dakota speakers, fluent speakers we have left in Manitoba. So just to acknowledge you in that way. And I'm really grateful that you're here. And now you're also here on behalf of your sister as well, Laura Pratt. So thank you.
Okay, did you want me to begin now or?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now, actually, and sharing the
Okay.
front cover of the law template. I just want to acknowledge how beautiful it is. And also, I just wanted to acknowledge the table of contents, because one of the things that Heidi spoke about was the importance of grounding the
Uh-huh.
framework in teachings and values and beliefs. And it's so very clear in your part 1 and part 2 of your law framework, very much the practice framework elements that Heidi was talking about. So is it okay if we just begin with, like, how did this begin? How did this vision come about? What were some of the first things you did to sort of helped this come to be. Is that okay if we begin in that way? And you can also say whatever else you'd like to say, of course.
Yeah. How this began was I was asked to be on the board for knowledge keepers for sovereign chiefs, and I didn't have a clue what what is going on. But the first meeting, it was brought up that a template be developed for Bill C-92, and
Mm,
like like I said, I didn't have a clue. But after the information that was given to the knowledge keepers, and I thought about it, and I came back to Dakota Plains, Wahpeton Nation, who I'm representing, and I sat down with the chief, and who's my son, and I mentioned it, and he, yeah, right, yeah, of course, Donnie being brought up the traditional way, said to me, "Well, Mom, think back in time." And those four words made me think back
mm,
in time, and that's when the Dakota family law template came into mind. And the very first uh, thing I thought of were the sacred laws, the code we
mm,
chose, and we call them the sacred laws that we were brought up with. And city, Wawokia, sharing, Waushida, respect, Waohoda, courage, Wohitike, bravery, Waditake, integrity, truth, Woichake, wisdom, Woksapet, listening attentively. These were the laws that we were instilled in us from the time we were born. And these were the everyday teachings that our people lived by. And the most important I noticed was respect, wa'ohuda, which our people always had in mind. Respect one another, respect families, respect children. And I don't know if you want me to read the family law template because it's in front of everybody, everyone's vision, right?
mm. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Did, did you?
Would you like to read the one about respect at least? It was one that you really spoke.
Yeah,
Um,
respect wa'ohoda. We in Dakota we say wa'ohoda, and this is respect. From the beginning of time, our people, our Dakota people, have always shown respect to one another, the leaders, children, family, parents, extended families. Everyone worked together, and the respect was always the number one. The number one law that we always live by, and so it's very important because today, because of the colonization that came into view, residential school, 60 scoop, well, these terrible situations caused our people to stray, and today it's slowly the respect is coming back slowly. It's being taught now in each community. I know with the Dakota communities, these laws are concentrated on continuously. And the most important were the family units. The family units. Tiwahe is the immediate family. Tioshpae, the extended family. Oyate, the community. These three components work continuously on a continuous basis. When I was growing up,
mm,
I grew up in a loving home. Everyone loved one another, worked together, prayed together, sang together, and the teachings were there every day. And if something happened, and family, immediate family had to be to do work or leave. In those days it was more normally cutting wood and hunting. Well, the Tiosh by the extended family would come in, and they would attend to our needs, our the children's needs. And
mm,
if something happened, and the Tioshbae again had some responsibilities, and the Oyate, the community will come in and they will take care the children. So these were the three very important family components that existed with our people, and we are desperately working hard to bring the families back together. So this was our main objective and our main topic for the Dakota family law template. It's bringing families together and bringing our children home, and to in order for our children to survive. Okay, the language came in, the
mm,
culture, the traditions, all these are so important because growing up, I have been through these wonderful situations, and it gave me a good life, and I share it today with family, and I continue sharing it with our Oyate, our people, and
mm,
that's the only. These are the only. The laws are going to save our children, our children
mm,
who are in homes. It's slowly coming to view now. For I always use Dakota Plains Wahpeton Nation as an example because they have brought these laws back into the community, and all programs are now working together, and that's what it's going to
mm,
take. And our leadership have to work very hard to keep all the programs intact and everyone working together
mm,
for the betterment of our children. Our children now, if they are in need, they are not sent away. They are kept in the community, and all the different programs work with the children on a continuous basis, whether it be health, whether it be Jordan's principle, education. All the programs are doing so well,
mm,
and this is our objective, is to keep our children home in the community.
mm,
That's that was our objective, and the sacred laws, the Dakota Wichocha, like I said, are very important and urgent and have to be retaught. There was a time they weren't written, but today they're written. It was just a norm, and when I was growing
mm.
up.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. And it's interesting as you share about the way that Dakota Plains works now, that the teachings are more of a foundation. And earlier in the call, Heidi shared a picture of the foundations of the law and the teachings and the framework, and then the house built
Yes.
on top of it. And in a way, you were describing that for the Dakota Plains Nation. And I want to acknowledge that and just make that connection. It is interesting though. How what was the journey you took with the other knowledge keepers, the others who knew the old ways? Like, what was the journey from sharing the stories to actually coming to agreement around some of the teachings and then writing them down? What was that journey
Well,
for you, and how it happened for you and your colleagues?
the knowledge keepers, that were involved in the group, well, they accepted. They accepted the laws right away because
Mm,
they knew the lives they had when they were young, and the growing up, and the teachings and the culture and the language. They knew that was what that pulled them through in life, and so they were in total agreement. Yes,
mm,
we're going to follow the laws that were introduced, of course, in their own language. They
mm,
did have their own laws too, but it wasn't very really discussed it before. So this is how it came to pass, and it's
yeah,
I see it's going to succeed. And it's
yeah,
for the betterment of our children. I have worked with children all my life, and I see so many problems and situations
mm,
because of colonization, and we have to take that colonization out of our lives now. We all
Yeah.
have to start working together because it's the children that are suffering today. There are many children suffering out there, and my sister Lori and I have worked with the youth 3 weeks ago in Winnipeg. This was
Mm,
a child family service, a youth rally, and we were invited to work with 250 youth. And the youth that came to us were so hungry for their culture, for their
mm,
language and traditions. And there were a few who had severe problems out there in the world that were dealing with demonic situations, alcohol, drugs, and it was a wonderful experience to listen to these young people, but at the same time it was
mm,
sad
mm.
because bottom line, these children do not know their culture, their language,
Yeah.
their where they were born, who their families
Mm,
are, and
mm,
it's time that we as a nation get together and start working for a better future, a positive future for the young generation. And I, there are, some who are uh, uh, still all for child family services operations today, and but that's the colonization for you. So
mm,
there are some that we are still working with and meeting
mm.
in the community. We have meetings here in the community, and it's continuous. Every day there's
Yeah.
something happening in the community, and it's to help the children. And the language is being taught at the school
Yeah.
here from nursery to grade 8, and the sacred laws are taught, the Dakota Witchoch, and children realize that our language is sacred and that there is a creator who gave us our language and our traditions and our culture, who are now understanding the adults who were at one point of time, the evangelism and came in,
Mm,
and our people were preached that. There was no
yeah.
teachings, they were preached that, and so it caused a lot of animosity. The language and culture were forgotten, and there was it wasn't good. Things weren't
Mm,
running well in the community, but
yes.
now things are improving because people are now
Mm,
realizing, yeah, the creator gave me this language, and our languages are sacred, whether it be Dakota, Ojibwe, Cree. Our languages are sacred, and without our language, our elders used to tell us, if you don't learn your language, you're nothing. You will
mm,
lose your culture, your traditions. So it's always stressed now by our Dakota people, our Dakota teachings, that our language is very important. So
mm,
our
mm.
objective is to bring our children home to learn all
Yes.
this, to learn their language, their culture, traditions, their ceremonies, families, to get to
Mm,
know their families over again. And it takes a lot of work, but you know what? It's not
yeah.
impossible. It takes a community to raise a child,
I,
and
I,
this is what's happening now in Dakota Plains. And I'm so
yeah.
happy to be here involved with the Dakota Plains Nation
I,
because they are all working very hard. And we have two students, children that left from Dakota Plains that are now pilots, and it's due to the teachings.
mm,
We teach the children the survival skills
yes.
when they leave the community. It doesn't matter where you go. You can go anywhere. You have to live by the sacred laws of the Dakota teachings, and you will
Oh,
survive anywhere. And so these are all the objectives that we
yeah.
work towards with this Bill C-92.
That's lovely. Thank you, Donna, for all of that. And I think that one of the kind of the intentions of the call today is to really think about, you know, what is the journey that nations can take to sort of
Mhm,
tell their teachings again, know their teachings again, write their
mhm,
teachings down, in a way, whether it's the sacred teachings, whether it's the belief systems, whether it's whatever it is
Uh-huh.
for that nation. So I'm curious, like even when you think about that, those earliest steps of rebuilding the foundation for Dakota Plains, based on really part one and part two of your law template, what's your biggest learning coming from just that work that you did with your sister, that you did with the other knowledge keepers and language speakers? What was your learning that just came from it? Um,
My learning was that we have to go back in time. We went back
oh,
in time, and we lived, we sat, and we discussed the the upbringing, our how we were brought up,
mm,
our bring our when we were growing up. Life was so sacred. Life was so sacred. There was praying every day, continuous
mm,
praying,
mm,
teaching. Parents were giving us attention every minute of the day when we were
mm,
home, teaching
mm,
us the values on a continuous basis. And so
mm,
this is what I saw what I really learned when I went
mm,
back in time. And I thought of all the wonderful times that existed in our communities, our people getting along, working together, helping one another. If there were children who were in need, everyone helped the
mm,
children.
mm,
Everyone helped the mothers who were having problems, the fathers who were having problems, and grandparents were always there for the community. And the
mm,
Iwakche societies were the old women who were the whip, who the grandmothers who were the law. If they saw something going wrong, well, they were there to help. And it was all good knowledge. Everything, like I said, always went back to the sacred teachings. And so I find that the
right.
sacred teachings are the most important thing to
Mm,
follow today and to teach our children. And it's got to be continuous, and all
mm.
programs have to be aware of all these teachings and culture and traditions.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Donna. I it resonates with me as you speak about having to go back to it and back to it and back to it. And I know the struggles sometimes in communities and the addictions, and then sometimes it's hard to remember maybe, or that some people in the community may not know the teachings, and I
Yes.
see how you'd have to keep coming back in a way, and just I resonate with that. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
the teachings
yeah,
are very important. They're, and like I say, I keep insisting that all programs have to work together in order to help the young generation, the adults who are coping with the drug and alcohol situation
yeah,
today. And it looks impossible, in a lot of communities. But like I said, it takes the whole community to work together, and our
mm,
leaders have to be fully involved. There are times our leaders, our chief and councils, are maybe too busy, but they have to start learning to take the
oh,
time to spend in the community and to start working with their people.
mm, oh, thank you. I do want to open it up to questions for those on the call right away. But maybe just, is there any other advice you would want to give your fellow like grandmothers and grandfathers, fellow knowledge keepers, fellow nation members in other nations that want to sort of take that journey of talking about how it was, the teachings or the systems, the worldviews, and any other advice you'd want to give other nations about how to go about it, or maybe what not to do, or what to do, or I don't want you to say that, but like, what advice would you give to nations who are interested in taking the journey that Dakota Plains
My
did with their law and their belief
My
system?
my advice to elders and grandfathers is to come out of their closets. A lot of our
Oh,
grandmas are so, residential schools to do with that, but they have to start thinking of the future now. Come out of their closets and don't be scared to express yourself, and start. You still the old grandmas and grandpas still have it in their hearts. They know
Oh,
the value systems and they have to bring it out, and don't be afraid. It's to better our yourself, and to share your knowledge, your language, your teachings to the young generation. They know all the problems that are in existence today, and so they have to learn not to be afraid, just to start communicating with all different elders from different communities. All elders have to start working together. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It takes a nation to improve the situation with the young people today, to keep our children, to save our children from the terrible things that are happening today. So those are my thoughts. Elders, we have to come out of our closets and start speaking out. Don't be afraid anymore. There are no more residential schools. There will be no more 60s scoop. And colonization, hey, come on, get it out of your minds now. Let's start working together as a whole.
thank you, Donna. Yeah, I yeah, yeah, thank you. That's touching to me. And also, Michelle, go ahead, and then maybe we'll open up to questions for others. Yeah.
Yeah, most certainly. I am so honored that you're here with us, Donna. And I thank you so much for sharing your beautiful wisdom. And may we honor all of our knowledge keepers. We're so lucky when we do have people working with us for uninformed people that don't know our language anymore. And I just wanted to mention, I think that Laura may be on. If the
Ah,
telephone number is 204-740-0255, I'm wondering if you could unmute Laura. Laura Pratt. And to unmute from memory, you press 4 on your phone.
beautiful.
Maybe not. We would love your participation too. I do have a question. Is the
Yes.
Dakota um, document, the law document, is that the same as the Anishinaabe? What is the difference of the two?
Lovely. Thank you. Donna?
Yes.
There is two templates, yes, the Dakota template and the Anishinaabe template. What are
Yes.
the differences between them, and was there a different journey in developing them? Thank you,
There
Michelle,
are
for your
no,
first
there
question.
are absolutely no differences. The animals will be the only difference, and they have we have Dakota society, and they have their own beliefs. They have their own way, but we're our beliefs are all towards the Creator. Every
Mm,
the Dakota Ojibwe, there are no differences.
mm. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Any other questions from others? Perhaps maybe if in sequence we can just acknowledge them in the chat box and just type them into the chat box. And I'll just give everybody a moment or two to maybe ask a question in the chat box, and then I'll just acknowledge them in the order they come. And Donna, I'll just ask them to you if that's okay for you.
Yeah, because the only thing I still see is during the meeting. I don't see your faces at all. I don't know what's
Um,
happening here in Manitoba.
yeah, and we can't
Maybe
see
the
you either. We can't see you either, but
aliens
your
took
voice is coming
over.
through clearly and strongly. So,
Yeah,
and your presence and
yeah.
wisdom is as well. So, so thank you. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
Mike, I wonder if you stop sharing now,
Yes.
might
Thank you.
make it easier
Make
for you.
help something. Okay, thank you.
We do have one question, and that was
Oh,
from
very
Tanya.
good.
Tanya Pace mentioned, it's in the chat there. This was with regards to the presentation you made, Heidi. With the Alberta statistics, 2022 Alberta showed 17 out of 1,000 children in care, but the next slide denotes 2021-22. Sorry, that's more of an administrative question, but that's all I've got right now in the chat, unless someone else has got a message and I
Yeah,
question. Yeah.
I think that that is depends where you get the stats from. One of the sets of stats I got came from the government of Canada, and the other set of stats, I'd have to go back to my slides, but the other set of stats came from a different website. They're amazingly difficult to find,
Mhm.
to be honest with you. So, yeah.
Thank you. Tanya, you've got your hand up. Would you like to have a
Hi.
chat?
Yes. Okay, ni dani ko na dwit spot Buakaki. I'm Tanya Pace Crosschild. I'm from Kainai First Nations in southern Alberta. My question today is I'm working on the legislation, creating the new legislation for the Kainai Nation. And my question is we are developing our framework to reflect our laws, and we do have a Ganite Sini, which is our kind of like our code that was developed, 20, 30 years ago by our elders. But my question is, how do we, and I don't know, maybe this is to the group, how do we change the practice mindset of the people who work within our nation, our own people, who are being educated in the Western ways of the colonial practices, and they keep defaulting back to white is right. And so we have our own college, Red Crow College, that is now has a Indigenous social work program, but those are the new ones that are coming out. But we're working with people that have historically been educated in that Western philosophy of thought, and we're telling them, hey, we have to make it better. They still are resistant, maybe not resistant, but they don't know how to get out. It's like the dog that's been chained up all the years in the yard, and all of a sudden you take the collar off and this hard. Like, how do we pull that out from our people who are the experts in their field, right?
Thank
That's
you.
an amazing question. I'm not sure who it's
Yeah.
directed at. You go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was going to think, Donna, do you mind taking a thought about that? Because I'm sure you've run into that with relatives and nation members who
You
might
have no
have been
Wi-Fi?
more raised in the Western way.
You
But
connect to the Wi-Fi? Hi, it was working. I don't know.
we can hear you, Donna.
Let's see, go down. Mm, where is your Wi-Fi on here? Go to your
Donna,
settings.
can you hear us?
Wi-Fi not connected.
Yes, you are. We can hear you.
You are, yeah.
Which one are you connected
Hello.
to? The guest? I guess, yeah. You're gonna have to go ask Stephanie
Yeah,
the
Donna.
password.
That's weird.
Now I'm lost.
It is funny.
So how do I get back in?
That's
You have
funny.
to connect.
It might be good if she disconnects and calls back in.
Yeah, I wonder.
But I would definitely be interested in what she has to say about that, having gone through that. I mean, I just loved hearing, and that's what I'm finding too, is it's in the stories. It's all in the stories. And so, taking the time to hear the stories and to allow people to talk that through. When I was a little girl and my mom used to take me to the gardens or to the woods and show me the medicines there, that sort of thing. But in terms of, as we wait for Donna to get back, in terms of taking the Western education out of people, Tanya, I totally get what you're saying. because I see it all the time. And some of these practices are so embedded. And so it really does come down to, remember that it's a journey and, creating a space for learning within your organization for traditional learning and to continue in that and to have processes in place that will, uh, that will allow leaders and their staff to think through the problems they're confronted with from the traditional standpoint. It comes back to how do you live and breathe the values and the traditions. So how do you make that show up in practice? And so,
Mm.
if you put the scenario out there, you've got a mom who's got a brand new baby, she's got an older child in care, and she's out of food. She doesn't have any food, and she's afraid to ask for help.
Sure.
But she knows she needs help. So she comes to your organization for help. How are you going to respond to that? Right. And you'll know how embedded the practices are by the responses you get from your workers, right? If they're responding from the Western ways, then bring up the traditional values, the traditional beliefs. Okay, how are you going to respond from that position of respect? Just as Donna described respect in her culture, how are you going to respond in that way?
And
Um,
we've got
Donna's
Donna
back
back
on, I think.
again.
Yeah.
oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
Donna,
Donna.
Tanya's
Yeah, go ahead.
question was, I'm working on the legislation, creating new legislation for the Kainai Nation. And my question is, we are developing our framework to reflect our laws. And we do have, which is a kind of like our code that was developed 20 or 30 years ago by our elders. My question is, how do we, and I don't know, maybe this is the group. How do we keep practice mindset of the people who work within our nation, our own people, who are being educated in the Western ways of the colonial practices? They keep defaulting back to white is right. And so, like, we have our own college, and it now has an Indigenous social work program, but those new ones that are coming on, they're still going to the historic Western philosophy. So, Donna, I'm wondering if you might be able to um, shed some light on that question. And you may need to unmute, Donna.
Donna, you're muted. We can't hear you. There'll be a little button on the bottom of your screen where you can click on your microphone.
Okay.
That's usually, yeah,
All right.
perfect. Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you.
Okay. And okay. And the question was, what was the question?
The question basically is that the young students that are now being trained at, I think it's Red Crow College, Indigenous social work program, but they keep reverting back to the Western philosophy instead of that which, their own traditional philosophies. How can we stop them from doing that?
What it's going to take. I know what's happening at one of the universities at Winnipeg is one of our knowledge keepers is there, and he's a doctor, and he is teaching the Dakota family law plate to the students, and so we have to, we as knowledge keepers have to communicate with professors or who is teaching the Western child family service knowledge that is in existence today. And so we as elders who are working with the Bill C-92 be utilized, and we have to actually work aside with the teachings at the university. This is what I see has to happen because everything the professors today, the teachings today are all in reference to the Child Family Service Act. And like I stress, our a lot of our Native people are having a very difficult time getting away from the Child Family Service Act. Has been in existence so long that they are finding it to go back to the sacred laws, the Koha that were in existence. And it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take teaching. It's we as knowledge keepers and elders have to teach. I think we have to teach these professors that are teaching this have to learn from the elders that are working towards the with the template.
Thank you so much for that. We have another question now, Donna. This is from Michelle Edwards. And she says, is there a framework for healing parents and or the community from our past so that we can move forward with the compassion we are striving for? There should be a framework of healing the non-Indigenous as well. They are the ones who need to acknowledge their history and why they feel entitled. So, is there a framework for healing?
There is a framework for it's all. Did you have a look at the Dakota Family Law template, or did
Yes.
Mike share it with? Okay, there is a part in there that has to do with healing. Our now are in the process of attending healing ceremonies. In fact, this question came up last week, a couple of weeks ago, at our meeting with the knowledge keepers, and it's the different societies that are getting together, and they have ceremonies, gatherings, feasts, and this is where our workers are attending to get a better standing, because it is going to take a lot of healing for our people. And there are people who are working with the child family service systems today who are beginning to attend these healing ceremonies. And it's very interesting that this question came up, because I see it happening today. I went
Mhm.
to a memorial last week in Sioux Valley, one of Morrison's memorial, and there I have seen different organizations attend Child Family Services, Jordan's Principle, and it's a form of healing that these people attend because they are learning the
Mhm.
healing journeys that our people are go through. And so I see this is what happened with our teachers, university, our young generation who are taking these courses. You have to have elders who have the knowledge, who know what it used to be, and that the CFS programs today are not working as good as they should be.
Thank you so much, Donna, for that. Now, I've got Beaver Paul from Tobik. Beaver, would you like to ask a question or make a statement?
I did. I wrote it out.
And I'm so sorry for that because I can't see it. Oh, there we go.
Okay, okay.
Would you,
I
you
can
would
read
like,
it out.
good, thank you.
Yeah, as in Tobic, we're we've written our law, all right, and we're thinking about a dispute resolution mechanism, and that's essentially a council of elders, all right. It's a terrible burden to put on people to sit and you know, like a tribunal, and it's almost like a court thing. But they will have to decide. They will, you know, at some point, someone's got to decide. And we thought about family circles, and we think that that would work, you know, for most situations. So, you know, there's this thing, this family group conferencing, families come together, and then we sort it out through that process. But then there comes a point where we have a non-native spouse, and you know, they're going to come and they're going to demand that there be some type of court system. So in our law, we have our council of elders, and we say it cannot be disputed. You cannot take it to another court. So we're pretty clear on what we want, and I just want to know, have others put their minds to how their dispute resolution mechanisms work, and how is that embedded in their justice principles? You know, you know, we have certain concepts that we embed, and it would be nice to hear others to see if we're similar or they've thought in a similar manner. So, anyways, that's enough talk, and that's what the question's about.
Well, I think that's wonderful. Is there anyone there that would like to make a comment?
Well, Doreen made a comment, so I saw that.
Yes? Oh,
No
good.
court. No court.
Yes.
And, you know, I believe in that because it's so adversarial, right? My brother's a lawyer, love him, but that's how he gets trained in the Canadian system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are there other ways of resolving these disputes other than that sort of adversarial approach? Anyways, just would love
Thank
to
you.
hear others.
Thank you, Beaver, I'm sorry. That's so interesting. It doesn't look like we've got a response just now. I do have another question, and this is from Angie Thorne. It's more of a statement. She says, I've been part of several webinars, and I haven't seen too much chat about band representatives and their role between social workers and families. I don't know if there's anyone there that can, oh, Tasia, here you go. Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Hello, how are you?
Great. Thank you.
Great. Yes, it's Tasia. Tasia, but that's okay. Yeah. Everybody calls me Tasia. Yeah, what we found, so we develop First Nation toolkits, First Nation representative toolkits. And in our research, what we have found is there is an underfunding in membership. And when communities and so what happens is different services are having to pull money together to provide for membership services, and that's a big problem on the ISK. So I think communities need to advocate for ISK to be able to get funding for their membership clerk, because the membership clerk and the First Nation representative would work very closely together in order to actually get the funding that they need for their communities, in order to get the actual data in regards to who are the members and who qualifies as a member, I guess, according to the Indian Act. And those services need to align way more, a lot more closely than what they are. So there are certain challenges and barriers that First Nation representatives face when trying to gather that data and who is a band member, you know, who qualifies for that, where are they? And ISK also has a sealed records that they do not share with First Nation communities, even knowing that children who have been removed do qualify for band membership, but those records are sealed and they are not accessible. So there's some ways I think that communities really need to advocate to ISK to be able to get that information specifically related to their members in their community. And that's all I would like to say for that, Miigwech.
Thank you, Tasia. I just wondered if you could let us know where you're from.
Oh, so right now I am sitting at my home in Edmonton, but I'm from, my roots are from Bay Mills, Indian community, which is in Brinley, Michigan. However, I grew up as an urban Indian in Edmonton and on the West Coast.
Oh, okay.
There
Thank you
you go.
so much.
Miigwech.
Angie Thorne, would you like to make a comment or a question?
Thank you. I've been a band representative before band representative was even named. So I've been in the social development role with ISK for the last 24 years. I was also the president of the First Nations Social Development Society in British Columbia. And one of the things that I went to bat with ISK for was band representative. Because what I found was band representatives, as named in the Child and Family Act, were doing all this work off the side of their desks without being compensated. So even though our names are in behind the Child and Family Act, I pointed it out to many BSDWs who didn't even know their name was being listed, as regard to ISK's list of BSDWs. So that was fallen on our laps, and I went to bat for that as the president of the society. And up to 3 years ago, and that was many years ago, 3 years ago, the band recognized that there was definitely a need to have band representatives. So now we receive monies for a wage for a band representative from ISK, and it's been happening now for this is the 3rd year. So we don't know how long that's going to happen for, but if anybody deals with ISK as long as I have, it's sporadic from year to year. You never know if you're going to get the funding. You really can't rely on it. Ask for surpluses to be pushed forward, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that we do in BC, we are getting funded for band representatives, but that's to mainly support families that are going into the system. So we work closely with the social workers as a liaison directly for the families, because a lot of families really don't understand the system. And that's what our role is, as far as that. I'm just going to be doing a workshop on best practices with our delegated agency. And just a comment, Michelle, about those stats that Heidi had
Yes.
mentioned. Our stats for our delegated agency that we work with, because we work so closely, every band that is involved in that has a band representative now. And because of those close working relationships, our numbers are going down. We're doing more prevention stuff and working more in the community with the resources that we have. I'm not saying it's the go-to answer, but we are going for jurisdiction. And this is very helpful, those stats. So making that transition a lot easier on our communities. But I know quite a few BSDWs in all across BC, and it's problematic for some bands to even get a band representative, somebody to commit their time to do that important work. But the work that I work with Bonaparte First Nation, it's 3 miles out of Cache Creek. I'm right in middle of BC, and I've worked here for 5 years, worked at another band for 13 and my own band for 7. So had an opportunity to work with many delegated agencies, many as far away as Toronto. I have a member in Toronto I work with on a case over there right now. So it's just supporting families. That's the role of band representative. So
Angie, that is fantastic. Look, thank you so much. That was such an interesting points you made there. We now have a First Nations rep from Saskatchewan, Leah Messer. Leah, would you like to ask your question or make a comment?
So I'm from BC. My band is Musqueam, but I actually have been out in Saskatchewan for 40 years. I've done 35 years with the Ministry of Child and Family Services, and I have now been with a nation out here, George Gordon First Nation, for since November 2023. But I've worked hand in hand with the nations in Saskatchewan for about 14 years. Anyways, so I was hired as the First Nations representative for George Gordon First Nation. And what I've noted is that while ISK allows for every band to have a First Nations representative, uh, it seems to be, regardless of the description and the information you have from ISK, that each nation determines what they want their First Nations representative to be. So in Saskatchewan, the FSIN has pulled together First Nations rep for us to try to get together, be on the same plate, have a stronger voice. If there are 72 bands, that would mean you would have 72 First Nations reps, which means 72 voices to go to the Ministry of Social Services and start to talk about what it is that we want to see in those communities. So what I have been pushing is for people to, once notice has been given of intent to pursue Bill C-92, for them to reach out to the ministry and advise them of what significant measures mean to us under the Act. So we've met with them, we've defined that these are the things we want you to notify of us, when a child comes into care, when a child's returned, if there's a critical or serious injury to a child, all of those things, as well as sharing information on the families that they're currently active with. Like for me, those are our priorities, right? They're either on apprehended status or they're temp wards or they're under Section 9s. We want to work on those to prevent those kids from permanently or long-term entering the system. I think what I'm hearing also is that role is so much more different in each province. You need to be familiar with the legislation of the province that you're in to be able to actually be a strong representative for the community you're working for. And I don't think a lot of us have that knowledge.
Thank you so much. That's something definitely to keep in mind, Leah. Thank you so much once again. We've now got a question. This is from Denise Lightning of Samson Cree First Nation in Alberta. She's a lawyer representing children and parents in child welfare, and she's so grateful for all of the sharing. And her question is for Donna. Are you still with us, Donna? I'm not sure if she is, but the question is, if someone else may like to take this question, how do you encourage, obtain buy-in from the non-Indigenous people in the system who have historically had so much power and economic state in maintaining the status quo, particularly for urban families? That's a huge question. And Donna, I think Donna's gone. We've got a big storm in Manitoba. I'm so sorry about that. That's really that's changed it quite. Uh, yeah, people are in
I
and out.
did see her name still on the list, Michelle. So she still is maybe technically in
Donna,
the call, but I'm not so sure that she's hearing us, or
okay.
maybe I'm not so sure. But yeah.
Well, look, we'll come back to that question. Doreen asks, where do you get the ISC report stating they will only fund First Nations representatives for 10 years? It's the first time she's hearing this. Leah? Oh, there's Donna. I'm sorry about that. I've jumped in. Donna, I'm wondering if you could answer this question from Denise Lightning of Samson Cree First Nation. How do you encourage or obtain buy-in from non-Indigenous people in the system who have historically had so much power and economic say in maintaining the status quo, particularly for urban families? Can you hear us, Donna? Or Leah, I think she's gone too. I'm so sorry about this. Leah, I don't think we can get Donna on that, and I'm wondering you
I'll be
maybe.
right back. I just gotta let somebody in the building.
Okay. Thanks. We're all triple tasking, double tasking. Well, it's been a wonderful session, and I would just like to encourage everyone to visit our website. I do want to let everyone know that we've got those beautiful family law templates. They'll be available on our website. They are right now, but I'm going to send you all links to the information that's been presented today, as well as our YouTube channel, where you'll be able to actually see the video in the in the next few hours, in fact. And, we'll be connecting everyone up. Also, some people have asked about the nation building workshop that Mike and Heidi will be putting on in June. We'll also let you know all of that information. And thanks, Leah. You're back.
Hi, so what was the question?
The question was, where do you get the ISC report? This is from Doreen Johnson. Where do you get the ISC report stating they will only fund First Nations representatives for 10 years? It's the first time she's hearing that.
That would be the first time I'm hearing that as well. That was not and is not my understanding.
Okay.
The Ontario, Quebec, that area, those provinces out there, they've had band representatives or First Nations reps for a number of years. So my understanding is, as far as other provinces, that this is new. Like, what is it old now? 3 years. I've not heard anything in all of my conversations with ISK that this is only a 10-year funding. The only limited funding I know is the capacity building funding.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. That's wonderful. I'll just go back, if I may, just to ask Donna this question again. This again was from Denise Lightning, and she's asked, how do you encourage obtain buy-in from non-Indigenous people in the system who have historically had too much power and economic say in maintaining the status quo?
You're talking to me?
Hello?
Oh,
Yes, yes. Can you hear us? Yeah, Donna?
Hello, am I back on? Boy,
Yes.
talk about bad communication here.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, we have been we're ways of communicating with children who are in the big cities, and we are communicating with families. We are, encouraging families to make sure that the children they are, for example, I've seen a lot of the whites with a lot of our children, and we encourage them to maybe take them back to their communities and to get to know, to work within a circle, to make good decisions for us, and these are the things that we have been working. It's sometimes very difficult to convince the urban society. They're the old ways again. The colonization is so difficult to beat, but we are going to beat it one day. I see a good future, and it's a lot of communication with the urban the children who are out there in the urbanities, away from community, away from their people. It's also going to take a lot of work from our people who are in our communities to try and continue communicating with their children and families who are out there. It's been a lot of work. It's there's no end to it, but we are going one day bring all these children back who have been to be taken care of. And I don't know if I'm answering that. It's going to take working together with the urban to, like I said, to make good decisions for our children.
Thank you, Donna. That is so, so lovely. I'm sorry we're just about out of time, but I do want to just bring up a comment from Jocelyn Sutherland, which we can reflect on and possibly bring to our next presentation, our next webinar, which will be on Monday, April 28th, called Funding Considerations for Jurisdiction and Reform of First Nations Child and Family Services. And yeah, Jocelyn, hi. Yes, so we won't have time, but I'm just want to just this is such a good question. Would you like to ask that question, Jocelyn?
The the recent one I just put on social
Yes, yes,
determinants of health.
yes.
Um, I've been a social worker in Fort Albany for about 24 years now. And recently I've been on the band rep program for the last 5 years since we started. And one of the one of the things I really notice is that when we talk about social determinants of health, it's how do we guide our families through health, education, housing, cultural land areas when we're so bombarded by outside entities such as land and resources, hunting games, M&R, ISK. There's so many things that were compressed. And how do we come across that as when we're working with trying to build nations to nations with other First Nations in the BANMA program when there's jurisdiction becomes a huge issue, a commodity where is it your child or is it my child? But when we're so blended in families and not to discriminate other ethnic groups, how do we work within those other ethnic communities to make sure our children are not lost in the system when the most contributing factor is homes. When we don't have homes, we can't do repatriations, we can't do family visits. We can't bring them out on the cultural because how do we do that together collaboratively? So I've been, I'm always trying to talk about these things. How do we approach these things? How do we do it in a way when our families are dying, our children are dying, our youth are dying, and also parents are dying?
Yeah.
That's why I talked about the
Awesome.
social determinants of health.
Yeah, they're all really good questions. The Our Children Our Way Society have recently, they're in the just completing now Culture is Healing, which is very much about social determinants of healing and how we can actually go about this. This will be we're developing a curriculum around that, and that will be out probably around September. We encourage you to do that. And also, I'll also send you all information about the two conferences that will be held one in Saskatchewan, Loving Justice, which will be held in September. I think it's the first week of September. I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head. That is hosted by FSIN, Cowessess First Nation, and I think Yellow Thunderbird Lodge and a couple of others, but I will let you know all about that. And of course, we'd love to invite you all to the Our Children, Our Way conference, which it will be happening again for the fifth time in Vancouver from November 5th to 11th, 2nd to 5th, I'm sorry. That's at the Vancouver Convention Center. Registrations will be open, I think, on June 16th. But I'll send you that information. I think each and every one of you that are at this particular webinar and some of the wonderful questions we've had, we could keep talking about all of this, you know? So if you have an idea for a webinar or there's something you would like to do, please know that we are so open to helping everyone, all of our people, to get to where we want to be. So with that, I'd like to close this webinar. And Donna, you were so kind to open it. Would you be so kind as to close the meeting for us with some good words?
Yes, first of all, I want to communicate to our Dakota Oyate, that to work together as a whole, leader it'd be Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, all to get together to the future for our children. If we don't start as a nation, we are going to lose all our children to all the situations out there. And I'm going to pray continuously every morning, every night, that one day leaders will really work hard towards bringing all back to our communities. And I thought of one day I was sitting there thinking, hey, I went to residential school and there were some, yes, negative things, some positive things, but I made up my mind, went to residential school and came out that I was going to get an education, work toward with children, with youth for a better, no matter what it takes. I'm going to do that. To children will not suffer. I've seen children suffer in residency 60 school that are having major problems today. Take a nation to improve all these terrible situations that in the past have gone through, that have been handed down. And hey, why don't we make build great big buildings in our communities to bring our, this was my thought. It may sound silly to a lot, but the residential school situation into a positive situation for the future, and just so we can bring them back and teach them their culture, their language is so important. With they learn their language and their culture, survive. It's gonna take a nation, and it's gonna take, like I said, our leaders. Our leaders have to start working together. So I'm going to say a prayer that all these things come to pass. Atewa kantaga. Ake ampetu ashtewa yakuba. Kaptina taku washte et ke eon tuampe. Washte wo hidagaba. Dweg was chante washte wa echama. Na kuhina ta tokata ke umte hana on hede de Togashira Nina Wopira Tanka Tweg was the Tweg was she judge on shu charape ha without me dark
Heichka, OCM, all my relations, thank you all so much for being here with great love, with compassion, empathy, and joy. We bid you farewell. Thank you.
Thank you. Pirama.
Thanks,
Wopira
Donna.
Tanka. Wopira Tanka.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Mike. Leah.
Thank you,
and
Donna.
Yeah, you're
Kate,
welcome. See you, Mike,
Donna,
back
Beaver.
in Manitoba.
Donna, that was so beautiful. And Heidi and Mike, I really am very, very moved by the whole thing. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank
you
you,
very much.
Donna.
Matakias.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.